Okay, so it's time to run through Act 3, Scene 2. So if you'll turn to page 96 of your books, I'll read for you a summary. Lady Macbeth learns from a servant that Banquo has left and says to herself that attaining the throne has not left her happy nor peaceful. Macbeth enters and admits that he too is tortured. They resolve to put on happy faces for the banquet ahead. Is Banquo gone from the court?
Ay, madame, but he returns again tonight.
Say to the king I would attend his leisure for a few words.
Madame, I will.
Exeunt servant. Naught's had, all spent, where our desire is got without consent. 'Tis safer to be that which we destroy than by destruction dwell in doubtless joy. Enter Macbeth. How now, my lord? Why do you keep alone? Of sorriest fancies your companions making, using those thoughts which should indeed have died with them they think on. Things without all remedy should be without regard. What's done is done. We have scorched the snake, not killed it. She'll close and be herself, whilst our poor malice remains in danger from her former tooth. But let the frame of things disjoint, both the worlds suffer, ere we will eat our meal in fear, and sleep in the affliction of these terrible dreams that shake us nightly. Better be with the dead, whom we, to gain our peace, have sent to peace, than on the torture of the mind to lie in restless ecstasy. Duncan is in his grave, after life's fitful fever he sleeps well. Treason has done its worst, nor steel, nor poison, malice domestic, foreign levy, nothing can touch him further. Come on, gentle my lord, sleek o'er your rugged looks, be bright and jovial among your guests tonight. So shall I, love, and so, I pray, be you. Let your remembrance apply to Banquo. Present him eminence, both with eye and tongue. Unsafe the while that we must have our honours in these flattering streams, and make our faces visits to our hearts, disguising what they are. We must leave this. So full of scorpions is my mind, dear wife. Thou knowest that Banquo and his fiancée lives. But in them nature's copies not in turn. There's comfort yet, they are assailable. Then be thou jocund, ere the bat hath flown his cloistered flight, ere to black Hecate summons the shard-born beetle with his drowsy hums hath rung night's yawning peal. There shall be done a deed of dreadful note. What's to be done? Be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, till thou applaud the deed. Come, sealing night, scarf up the tender eye of pitiful day, and with thy bloody and invisible hand cancel and tear to pieces that great bond which keeps me pale. Light thickens, and the crow makes wing to the rooky woods. Good things of day begin to droop and drowse, whiles night's black agents to their praise do rouse. Thou marvellest at my words, but hold thee still. Things bad begun make strong themselves by ill. So prithee, go with me. Okay, so that is the end of Act 3, Scene 2. So if you'll return to page 96, we'll quickly run through the themes and vocabulary. And I'll let you know now that I've organised 3 essay questions that can be completed by the end of Act 3 that we will go through on a video tomorrow. So we'll start on line 6, and this is a line 6 to 7 that I want you to highlight now and I want you to record in the front of your booklets. And that's the line where Lady Macbeth says, "Naught's had, all's spent, where our desire is got without content." And if you need to remember just one section of the line, it would be that first bit, "Naught's had, all's spent." And that basically means that nothing's been gained, naught's had, and all has been spent, or all has been lost, all spent. And this is a good quote to show that Lady Macbeth immediately regrets killing Duncan, and it's a sign of her returning to her what's seen as feminine frailties and this traditional gender role where Macbeth is her masculine shield and he is controlling the scenes and what's happening, and she's returned to that feminine role of being the innocent wife, or as he calls her in the next few pages, innocent Chuck. And so that is a good quote to remember, to see her descent into madness and their switching back of masculine and feminine roles. We'll go now to line 11, when Macbeth has entered and she's speaking to him, and she says that he's thinking of sorriest fancies when he's alone. And sorriest fancies here are meaning thoughts, and sorriest means the most regretful. So he's thinking of regretful thoughts, or the saddest thoughts, such as Duncan's murder. And using the line underneath that on line 12 means consorting with. So he's consorting with thoughts that he should have left alone. We'll go down to line 15 when he is speaking. He says, "We have scorched the snake," and scorched here doesn't mean burnt, but it means cut or gashed, not killed it. So snake here is a metaphorical term referring to his enemies, those who would want to take the throne. So they've cut the snake by killing Duncan and getting rid of his sons, but the snake's not dead. They still have a threat to their throne. He is meaning there Banquo and Fleance, but he also could be referring to Malcolm and Donalbain, who are drumming up support in England and Ireland. Then underneath that, he says poor malice. So this is line 16. Poor malice means feeble plotting. So their malicious plans of getting rid of everyone who threatens their throne are feeble or weak. They haven't done enough. And then 2 lines under that, so we're looking at line 18, he says, "Let the frame of things," and frame of things means the universe, so that which frames everything, the universe, "fall apart, and both worlds suffer," and both worlds meaning heaven and earth. So let both heaven and earth suffer. We'll go across now to page 98, and this is when Macbeth is still speaking. In line 24, he says, "In restless ecstasy." Restless ecstasy means strong emotion. Ecstasy nowadays is used just to refer to what's good, like good emotion. But back in these days, anything that was excessive was viewed as negative. So if you had excessive emotion, either good or bad, that was a negative thing. It was a virtue to have your emotions in reasonable control. And so restless ecstasy meant you were out of control, and that was a bad thing. And then on line 26, Macbeth says, "Treason has done his worst." So he's personifying the act of treason, or perhaps he's referring to himself because he committed treason when he killed Duncan. And then he says, "Nor steel, nor poison," which means not weapons, not poison. Malice domestic, so that means domestic enemies, so Scottish enemies. Foreign Levi or Levi, which means those coming, the enemies that are foreign. Nothing can touch him further. So he's almost justifying Duncan's murder. He's saying, now that treason's been done against Duncan, or I've committed treason, weapons, poison, and both domestic and foreign enemies can't hurt him. We'll go down then to line 30, where Lady Macbeth says, "Be bright and jovial among your guests tonight." So there we see a recurring theme of appearance hiding reality, and that's a link back to end of Act 1, I believe, when she says to Macbeth, it is the end of Act 1, "Look the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it." So there she is telling him again to hide his true feelings and pretend to be a good person. Macbeth reflects the same sentiment, and on line 35, he says, "Make our faces vizards to our hearts." And vizards here are a type of mask, and you might think of more medieval type parties. Maybe you've seen movies of Romeo and Juliet, when Romeo and his friends dress up in masks to go to the party, and you can imagine that type of mask that sits just here on the face and covers the eye and would be tied up with a ribbon on the back, and that would be a vizard. So he's saying, let's make our faces masks and hide what's truly in our hearts. So there's that same theme there of appearance hiding reality. And then we'll go to line 39. Lady Macbeth says, in them nature's copies, not a turn. So she's saying that Fleance and Banquo won't live forever. And that could be interpreted as her returning to those feminine sensibilities, that nurturing role, the masculine spirits that she called upon have left her. And now she's saying, let's just leave them be. They can't live forever. So she's become weaker by her own accord. And then we'll go to page 100, the last page for this scene. And Macbeth calls her dearest Chuck and tells her to be innocent of his plan. And we know his plan is to kill Banquo and Fleance. And again, there's that return to traditional or classic gender roles. And he is acting as a shield for her. And then, of course, we see that return of the idea of darkness covering up evil or murder. And Macbeth says, come sealing night. And this is the third time one of the two of them have called on night or darkness to cover up a murder. And he says, scarf up the tender eye of pitiful day. So again, that idea of make daylight blind, or make up the people blind of what I'm going to do. And with thy bloody and invisible hand, cancel and tear to pieces that great bond. So the great bond he's referring to there could be interpreted as the witch's promise to Banquo that he will father a line of kings. And I want to return to the start of that phrase when he says, come sealing night. Basically, seal is a falconry term, and it's quite a gruesome term. And it referred to when a falconer would so shut the eyes of a bird in order to tame it. So it's quite a vicious imagery that we're looking at there. And then we'll look at the end. So we're looking at line 51 to 52, where Macbeth says, the crow makes wing to the rookie wood. And the crow there, just like the raven that Lady Macbeth said was horse when Duncan arrived, is a bird. It's an animal that is acting as an image of death. And he's basically saying that death is coming to the wood that Banquo is riding through. And that is the end of Act 3, Scene 2.